After 8 straight weeks of planting, our half-acre garden is almost officially planted, and now the race begins to see if we can turn all of this into a year's supply of food for our family of 8. If you're new here, I'm Becky. My husband Cam and I, we homestead in Northwest Arkansas. For the last 6 years, we have been growing and preserving as much of our own food as possible. Today we're going to be showing you what the garden looks like after weeks of nonstop work. We're going to show what's thriving, what's struggling, and what comes next as we head into our harvest season. We have a lot of blackberries that are ready to harvest, and I am so excited about it. This has been a long time coming. Our blackberries, they didn't do that great the first couple of years, but now they have finally taken off, and we did a few things to get them to this point. One of them being the trellis, the other being we have been fertilizing these blackberries with Mineral-Lite Grow each year. This variety especially is good, so we're gonna go through here and do a big harvest today. Over the years that we have grown blackberries, we have learned quite a few things. One of the things I learned was not to space them too far apart. I just followed the spacing that was recommended, and it ended up being too far apart because we really struggled with a lot of weeds competing with the blackberries in the first few years. So last year I went through and I took any blackberry canes that were spreading out of the area and I replanted them in the row. And then we also bought new blackberry canes for areas where we didn't have enough, and just filled in this whole area, and it worked. So now the blackberries, they are out competing all of the weeds, and it's almost like a big hedge blackberry wall across this whole area. And now a lot of the weeds that we had trouble with, they're not even an issue. Blackberries are my favorite fruit of all time. So to have blackberries from our garden, just tons of them, is literally my dream come true. It's a happy day. It's a very happy day today. Happy day! We just finished up harvesting all of the blackberries that were ready. So I'm gonna take these inside and get them chilled before they go bad. Blackberries, we just barely started to harvest. And for the blueberries, we are kind of right in the middle of harvest season. So you can see couple very large berries here. I love this variety. This is Chandler. It just makes the biggest blueberries that I've ever seen. And it also helps to prune it correctly. One of the things that we realized this year is that we need to plant some more blueberries because we are not getting enough for our year supply. Part of that is because these blueberries, they're not fully mature yet. We still have a few years before they're at full size. The other thing is we have 2 other rows, but we picked the flowers off of those so that they would not produce fruit this year, because I wanted the bushes to get larger so that we could get more fruit in the future. So for right now, we pick some here and some locally, and that makes up our year supply. So our last garden tour, I was very concerned about these particular blueberry bushes. These are rabbit eye blueberries, and they have not done as well in our area just generally, but they're also really yellow even after I had fertilized them. So I had a hunch that the pH was too high, and I took a soil test, sent that off. I used Redmond's soil test for that. It's a really easy and fast process, and we got our results back already literally within like 8 days. So I know exactly what the pH is right now, and it's 6.1, which is way high for a blueberry plant. The pH of blueberries should be anywhere between 4.8 and 5.2. So I'm gonna get some sulfur to put down on these blueberry plants, and we will fix this problem. So we picked up just a basic soil acidifier from our local hardware store, and I am following the directions on the back of this bag. This is a 6-pound bag, so they said to put down basically 12 pounds per row that we have here to lower everything by 1 pH point. We will do another soil test again in the fall, just to make sure that this works and everything is at the right pH. And if it's not right, we will add even more sulfur or adjust as needed so that we're ready for the next growing season of these blueberries. So we have sheet mulched these blueberries pretty relentlessly over the years. And as you can see, it's no match for the Bermuda grass. You can see it's popping up right through all of the sheet mulch that we just barely put down. So the problem that we're having here is that there's just too much open space between the blueberries, and that allows for the Bermuda grass to grow crazy. So we need to keep this ground covered somehow. So I was talking with Cam and we decided we definitely have room to do like we did with the blackberries and plant more blueberries in between each of the plants that we have, because we really just need to shade out and crowd out all of this Bermuda grass somehow. So we're gonna do that, but I also feel like we need some sort of other plant underneath the blueberries, and I'm not sure what that is. I've been toying with all different kinds of options. We did plant some lingonberry this spring, but it is a plant that does well in more northern areas, so it's not really taking off here. And my other thought was to plant flowers underneath the blueberries, but I'm just not sure. So if you have any thoughts or experience on plants that do well with the blueberries, let me know in the comments, because I really need some advice on this.
So we basically planted our corn this year in 3 different phases. We have our sweet corn that we planted first, and so that's the biggest right now. And then next to that is the Dent corn that we got in a few weeks ago, and it's growing really well. What's left to plant actually is our popcorn that we have in soil blocks right now, and I'll probably do that later today. Corn is a really heavy feeder, and so we're making sure that we keep appropriate nitrogen levels here. In the past, we've used an organic blood meal to help maintain that. This year, we found feather meal is a little bit cheaper, so we're gonna try that this year. One other thing we've noticed with corn is we usually put a healthy amount of compost on these rows before we plant, and it still does not seem like that's enough. And so that's why we make sure to add those extra amendments to keep it growing well. So over the years of planting corn, we have learned that we get the best results when we transplant our corn. Probably the biggest reason that we transplant now is because all of our corn we put in recently terminated cover crop area. Also, the rye that we have here specifically is Oleojurassic. And so, what's the word again? Becky taught me how to pronounce that it is allelopathic, which one of the side effects of that is it makes it really difficult for plants that we put in here to germinate. It kind of slows the germination rates and can stunt some growth a little bit. That is the main reason why we transplant, so that we avoid any of that. It's pretty amazing to see how the rye is doing its job with the weeds, inhibiting their growth, but the rows that we don't have rye planted in, you can already see weeds popping up. So it's pretty interesting to see that contrast.
So we're doing our first harvest of green beans today. I am really excited to have more variety in our diet, because we've had a long time of eating the same things over and over. One of the things that we noticed after doing a few feet of this is I walked up to the front of the row and I realized that the ones up at the top, they are not ready to be picked, but the ones in the back are. So the reason for that is I have been doing a little bit of a test with soil microbes. So this is a concentrated probiotic. This is from Redmond, and I just tested this back half of the green beans with this on it. I probably did 2 applications over 1 month. And then the front half of the green beans, I didn't do anything to. I just left it as is. Everything else was exactly the same. So I was really surprised when I came out here today and noticed that this back half, it matured faster than the front half with no soil microbes. That is not something that I expected to happen with this. I was thinking, okay, I'll see healthier plants or more yield or something like that, and potentially we could have more yield here. But noticing that the harvest came on faster, that was a big surprise in a good way. So this stuff contains 10 times more soil microbes than any other probiotic we've ever used. It is super concentrated with beneficial microorganisms. So the results so far are super fascinating to me, and I am looking forward to doing more tests with this to see if there's a difference in yield as well. So we are going to keep track of our yield with the green beans, but I am definitely going to be trying this out in other areas of the garden. So if you want healthier soil, healthier plants, and faster harvest, you need to try out Redmond's Soil Microbes. We have a discount code for you guys, and we will leave a link down in the description. So we're going to take these green beans inside in a minute, but for right now, since we're here, I'll go ahead and show you guys the onions that we have. They are starting to bulb up a little bit. Cam was looking at these and he's getting really nervous that they're not going to get big. We still have some time, so I'm hoping that they still mature. We planted them just a little bit later than we should have, and that really matters here where we are in the south. And I'm actually planning on putting some of those soil microbes on these onions to get them to bulb a little bit faster so that we can get a good harvest this year. I'm not sure why this is, but we rarely ever have our onions flop over when they are ready to harvest. I think a lot of that is because we have a lot of pest and disease pressure before they even get to that point. So it's almost like they're dying before they can flop over and show that they're ready. We do get a good onion harvest every single year. It's just that we don't have that classic sign that the onions are ready for harvest.
So we have 3 rows of tomatoes here, and I have never been more excited to have fresh eating tomatoes. It sounds really weird even saying that myself, because I was that kid that I loved salsa, but I could not stand the taste and texture of a fresh sliced tomato. I don't know why, but a lot has changed since then. So on the 2 outside edges, we have midnight Romas, and then running right down the middle are our heirloom, mostly cherry tomatoes and slicing tomatoes. I was able to put up a 3rd trellis line up here above this row, and so now I can say 100% of the tomatoes in here are trellised, and that feels really good. We are trimming and pruning this middle row only. We're leaving the midnight Romas just full so they can produce what they can. That was Becky's orders, and I tend to follow what she says. So as you can see here, we're getting really close to having some good tomatoes that are ready. We're probably 2 to 3 weeks out from our first big tomato harvest, and I cannot wait for that. We actually have had a few volunteer tomato plants over in our other tunnel that have produced some red cherry tomatoes. We've already been enjoying those in some salads, and they are so good. Overall, our tomato patch is looking pretty good. We are keeping a close eye on the common pests that like to attack our tomatoes, and so right now it's these caterpillars that just start to eat through, and then later on in the season it will be hornworms that start to attack. So hopefully we'll catch those early.
This is my garden. I decided that quality over quantity matters and size doesn't matter. So I built this little square, and it's got 4 plants of basil and 1 tomato plant, and you can see that it's producing a little bit of tomatoes, so I'm excited for that. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, this is my garden. I have polar bear flowers right here, Victorians over here, some marigolds down here. I've also got a sunflower. Here's another one. That's the same thing. And then more sunflowers down here, cosmos right here. I think they're the same type as this. Cucumber plants and 1 watermelon plant. Cosmos on each end, and then peppers in the middle, picnic peppers and jalapenos. All 6 of these tomatoes are black cherry, sunrise bumblebee, sweetie tomato, and then Cherokee purple. And that's it.
This is my garden. Right here I have marigolds, and then I have double Dutch rose cosmos, I think. They flop every year. It's whatever. And then Sonia sunflowers. I have a lot of these that bloomed. And I don't know what this is. It's, I think, a sunflower, but it's really close to blooming. So we'll see after that. And then I have polar bear zinnias, and over here I just have a mix of all of the colors of zinnias. A lot of red and orange have bloomed. Cucumbers, I have 4 all here, I think. And I have 1 really small watermelon and a melon in the middle. Over here in this row, I have 2 red picnic peppers and 2 jalapenos. And then I have a lot of basil. Probably should have planted less, but yeah. Sunrise bumblebees on the ends. And then I think the 3 in the middle are German Johnson. And that's the end.
So we went in for a little lunch break, came out, and it's looking like it's going to rain soon, so we're going to hurry through the rest of our garden here and show you everything else that we have, because there's still a lot more to go through. So this flower border is looking really good. Then on the next row over, we have our food forest area where we have apple trees, and then we have rhubarb and currants, and then we also planted some echinacea in there as well. Our apple trees, they have grown so big so fast. It is so different from what I have seen down at the other orchard. We have really bad soil down there, and the soil up here we've been working on for 7 years. Then over on this side, we planted our mammoth sunflowers here, and the majority have popped up and are growing pretty fast, of course, for sunflowers. We have more apple trees over here for our other side of our food forest area. Same kind of things over here where we have the rhubarb, currants, we have honeyberries down at that end, and we also planted some echinacea in here. First, we'll talk about these beans. These are beef bush black resilient bean, and these were a seed developed by Carol Deppy, whose book I mentioned in our last video. Originally, when these were growing, they looked really good at the beginning, and then they had a spot in the middle there where down at this end of the garden, they were like super yellow and they did not look good. I did a live in-person garden class for the ladies from my church, and at the time that they came over, that was when these beans were at their worst. They looked so bad down at this end. Somebody asked me, what do you do if you see that happening, that yellowing of the plants? And what I told them is I do a couple of things. The main thing is I added a liquid fish fertilizer. So a liquid fertilizer, it goes to the roots really quickly and it's able to work fast. The other thing I added was those soil microbes, and then the third thing I added was I sprinkled minerals on this whole area along with langbonite. And I went and I looked back at my soil test and I realized that this area needed some of that langbonite. All across the whole thing, I had bought some, but I had never put it on. So those three things are what I did, and they look so much better now. You guys didn't see me plant these, I did this off camera, but I needed some more black beans. We planted some in the tunnel. So these are Cherokee Trail of Tears black beans, and they are a pole bean. So we are gonna put up a trellis here as soon as we get the supplies for that. I'm waiting on some more poles to come in the mail so that we can finish this. So it'll look just like this one over here. This one over here, it still needs the netting on top. We just haven't done that yet. And then on this side, I planted lima beans over here. I have never had good success with growing lima beans, but I'm trying it again, and I'm really hoping these sprout. I had some older seed from a few years ago, which may not have the best germination. And this down here is one of our most foolproof, easy crops to grow, and that's cowpeas. They grow through drought and heat and everything that our summer has, and they just produce amazing. I save my own cowpea seed every single year. I don't know why, but the name was like escaping me for a second. I'm pretty sure that these are Ozark Razorback cowpeas. It is officially raining, so we may need to postpone the rest of the tour until tomorrow. But for now, I want to end on something really good, and that is the potatoes. We've made a huge comeback from last year's disastrous potato harvest, which was basically almost nothing. And all of the potatoes look so good this year. So we have a lot of varieties of potatoes this year. We have Sharpomira, Sharposhona, Elba. That is a lot of what we have been harvesting from because they are the largest right now. Then we also planted some rose gold, I believe. And then we have Lorette, which is a fingerling potato in these other rows. We're on squash bug patrol this morning, trying to catch both the squash bugs and the eggs. I did see a couple little nymphs down there at that end that we need to get as well. But for the most part, there are not a lot of squash bugs or eggs on these plants, and the majority of that has to do with the fact that these had insect netting on them until about last week. Overall, the squash look really good. The only disappointment I've had so far this year is all of the honey patch squash, which is like a baby butternut. It doesn't look like it's pure seed. It looks like it somehow crossed last year. These are not seeds that we saved. These are seeds we purchased. So this is really unfortunate because I can't go back and purchase from that same source. So we still have time to grow some more. So my plan is to purchase some more seed from a different source and then try and get some more winter squash that way, just in case this grows out to something that we don't even like. We planted these sweet potatoes last week. Not much has changed here, just a little bit of growth. We put some hay down in the aisles to keep all of this paper down. And what we have growing here is we have 4 types of sweet potatoes. We have White Bonita, Covington, Purple Majesty, and Beauregard. So over here, I'll mention this really quick. This we grew as a cover crop of winter rye and hairy vetch. As the season went on, I was like, well, we're saving seeds in other areas of our garden as well. I may as well try and save some of this winter rye as seed. So this is mature now. So we'll come and cut off all these grain stalks. Since this is Homestead scale, there's no combine here, so we do all of the harvesting, winnowing, and threshing all by hand. It has been a little while since I have been in this tunnel, and there is a lot of growth in here, even over the last couple of days. Last week, we took off the insect netting that was over top of our cucumbers. So I really need to get in here and trellis some of these. That is my plan for this year, is to trellis some of them and then to keep some of them not trellised and to see which batch does better. So up here we have a slicing cucumber. These are green finger. Here in the back, this is H19 little leaf cucumber, and this is a pickling cucumber. And I always let these sprawl on the ground. I am not going to trellis these ones. The trellising is just going to happen between my slicing cucumbers up there. I actually haven't looked at these at all, but I assume that pretty soon we are going to be getting some fruit from these, and this is going to be a big harvest, and it's only a few plants. Probably the best choice that I made this year is I put our winter squash and summer squash way away from our cucumbers and watermelons. And it seems like it's working really good because I don't see any squash bugs on these yet. Later in the season, that's a possibility, but for right now, very happy that these are being left alone by the squash bugs. So right here is where we planted our dried beans. These are Eclipse black beans. And surprisingly, for the most part, we got pretty decent germination considering the conditions at the time when we planted these. It was literally flooding in here. And most of these actually germinated, and this is also older seed as well. So also last week we planted carrots, and because it's warm this time of year, they've already popped up. We usually put burlap on the top of the carrots just to make sure that they germinate well. So I can see the carrot seedlings coming through this burlap, and we'll pull it up right now. Over in this area, we have our first succession of carrots, and they look really good. No problem so far, other than what I mentioned last week. Our little toddlers love to pick these, but other than that, they've been pretty much pest and issue free. We had a few of our grape plants die over the winter, so I actually was able to order some more, had them delivered, and they were half price because it was later in the season. So I just planted some new ones here. This one is Compassion, and I'm not even really sure what that one is over there. We did end up pulling out our pomegranate tree. If you remember, it looked like it was dead. It really was dead. So that came out of here. These right here, these are all Concord grapes. Right in here we have our cantaloupes and then honeydew melons. So right here you can see one of the new grapes that I planted. I did get a lot more Concord grapes just because that was the one variety that seemed to do really well in this environment and our area and all that. It was really thriving back there. So I got a couple more Concord and just a few more for like fresh eating, because I love all the slip skin grapes just even for fresh eating. But Cam and some of the other kids, they really like the more firm table grapes. All of our watermelons this year are the Leelanau Sweet Glow melons, and I did that because I wanted to be able to save the seeds and I didn't want any other kinds around. And it's an orange flesh type of melon, and we've actually never had it before, so I'm hoping it's as good as the description makes it sound. So right over here, these were also volunteer tomatoes. And then right up here towards the front, these are Fredonia grapes. I have struggled so much to grow fruit, even though it is like my favorite thing to eat. And I don't know why I waited so long to grow grapes. These are probably the easiest fruit that I have ever grown. Granted, we have not made it to a harvest yet, but so far so good. We haven't had any insect problems or fungal diseases or anything like that because they're here in the tunnel. The only thing that I have seen is I did see a bird come in here, and it made me really worried because I have heard that grapes are a favorite of birds. So I read that you can bag grapes in like paper bags and it can protect from the birds. So I will probably try that. So we had this volunteer black cherry tomato pop up this year, and I just left it here, and I'm really glad I did because it is the first tomatoes that we have been harvesting this year. We have a lot more coming, as you saw. The first ones are always the most special, so it's really nice to have this plant in here. Next, we're gonna head down to the orchard. It is starting to rain again, so we are going to hurry down there before we get soaked.
I've never really been a fan of umbrellas, and so I'm just out here getting wet. Perfect example here. If I had an umbrella, I would not be able to use two hands to open this gate. So the fruit is bigger than it was last year at this time, so we're doing what we can to protect that. We have these little mesh bags that we're gonna cover the fruit with. I saw them do this in Korea, and I don't know if they do it anywhere else, but when you go out at certain times in the spring and summer, just all their trees are covered in these white bags to protect the fruit. So we're gonna do that here, and hopefully it'll keep the squirrels and bugs away. So I think we're gonna call it for today. The rain is coming down heavier, and Becky and I are gonna get inside. So if you missed last month's garden tour, we'll link that right up here so you can check out that and get all caught up.